In this video, we're going to talk about design thinking and just walk through what is the general design thinking process. So in design thinking, what we're essentially doing is taking the tools and the methods that have traditionally been used by designers to create physical objects, and we're applying them to a broader problem set. Design thinking is also a way of thinking. It's very positive, it's solution seeking, so it can be applied to a lot of different kinds of problems. And it's very important in the digital economy because innovation really needs to be driven by human needs. And we see a lot of innovation, especially in digital products, that is driven by business or revenue models and technology. Part of the reason that design thinking is so important right now, it's having a bit of a moment. You'll hear it spoken about a lot. A lot of different kinds of businesses are opening up design labs. Banking organizations like TD Bank, insurance companies are opening up design and innovation labs. And it's because the way we've always done things in business, in the world, it's not working anymore. The World Economic Forum has stated that we live in exponential times. That means that the pace of change is so rapid, it's not linear anymore. If we would plot it on a curve, it would look more like a hockey stick. It's exponential. Things are changing very, very rapidly, but we're humans. We're still very linear in our thinking, and we're generating a lot of new problems out of this complexity and this exponential change. And we really need to come up with radically new ways of doing things to solve these wicked problems that we face. And we try to tackle, little joke there, wicked problems with design thinking. I really think that design thinking is it's a foundational skill set in terms of our ability to innovate, not just in digital products and services, but really to problem solve now and in the future. One of the big proponents of design thinking is Tim Brown, one of the founders of IDEO. That's IDEO. And he has a really simple but really powerful definition of design thinking. It's this sort of trifecta of the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. And you'll often see design thinking as these three circles. And for our purposes, we're really going to be trying to come at it as from the desirable for users standpoint. But that's not always the case. And it's certainly the case that, and from an engineering perspective, we often focus on technology. What can we build? Managers, business people definitely tend to come at it from a revenue generation focus. What is going to sustain our business? Often that is a business modeling process. But we're going to really focus on users and their goals. Not only what do people desire, what do they need? Sometimes they don't know what they need, and we're going to spend a fair bit of time in this problem finding, problem framing part of the process so that we can really clarify what our users need. And becoming literate in design thinking means becoming familiar with a lot of different kinds of models. So you're going to be looking at the models in this area, in the user opportunity needs, sort of this beginning problem finding, problem framing area. And as I mentioned earlier on, design thinking, it's not just methodologies, it's not just about user-centered design, it is actually in itself a set of values, and these are really important. There's a lot of optimism in design thinking. You really want to be believing in change. You need to be able to hold a lot of ambiguity in your hands at one time and not rush to solutions out of a discomfort with ambiguity. There's also the value of empathy, and we're really trying to exercise that muscle by conducting user interviews, by coming face to face with your end users and finding out what their life is really like. Collaboration is a huge part of design thinking. So almost everything happens on teams. And the more diverse your team in terms of the ways of thinking, the ways of doing things, the better. It sometimes feels at the beginning of a project that that is a deficit, and it can be difficult to deal with team members who might think differently than you, but ultimately you're going to have a better product. So it's important to get through that initial storming phase of team formation so that you can move into a kind of a norming phase where you're able to work collaboratively together. Design thinking is also about conversation. It's about being able to hold space to have a conversation with your users and with others on your team. Being able to hear people's ideas without judgment is very, very important. It's a two-way street. It's a back and forth all the time. And it's also about systems. Design thinking is being able to see that there are systems at play underneath almost everything, and recognizing how the systems work is something that will help you to make sure that your solutions don't have unintended consequences. Sometimes we develop solutions that have the unintended consequence of actually perpetuating systemic issues. And design thinking offers us a really specific process to help us work through the user needs, the technological feasibility, the business viability, and that is this. We start with empathize before we ever work to define our product idea, before we ever brainstorm or ideate, before we ever make a prototype, before we ever test. It's important to understand that this process from empathize all the way through to test is iterative. We cycle through this process over and over in the user-centered design thinking process. What we're really going to focus on for today's class and today's lab is this empathize phase, this important first step, which is understanding the user.